Yeah, that's really interesting. I think those statistics really highlight the critical nature and importance of an ongoing learning and development and skills development within the workplace and beyond. So, what are the available choices, do you think, for organizations in addressing these needs? If, for instance, is hiring and training high potential greenfield candidates and doing that quickly versus maybe losing time, trying to recruit fully skilled and competent candidates? What are the choices that organizations have?
Yeah, and I'll jump in here because what's interesting, and we had thought that there would be a lot of shift, but it's very consistent that most of the candidates are going to be full-time equivalents. They have about 20% coming from contractors, about 15% coming from digital assistants. So that mix hasn't really shifted. But, and this goes to your question about Greenfield, we can't find the talent we need with the skills. So what are you going to do? Right. So the difference that I've seen in our future of work research is that there's been a huge leap in things like employees being reskilled or retrained. So in 2021, for example, 18% were going to be reskilled or retrained according to IT line of business and the other leaders of organizations that we interviewed. Now 49%. That's a huge jump. And, they're also going to be transferred to new roles or functions. So yes, while we see that positions are going to be eliminated as a result of a lot of the automation and the need and the gaps that we're talking about here, part of that's because the positions themselves are going away, but the responsibilities are shifting to higher value tasks. So that's where we see the big change, is that focus on bringing in the talent from within, because it's going to take too long to wait for the talent to surface with the perfect skills from without.
Yeah, I think that's a really positive trend, Amy. I think, as a business leader, and as I think about getting the best out of people, it's always so much better to develop talent within your own organization, to do the key tasks, and it really drives a sense of loyalty across the organization and a really productive workforce. So, I am a little curious, do you see any major impediments as you dig into this topic around organizations reskilling and upskilling their talent? What might be some of those impediments?
Oh, I can tell you about those impediments, so, David, because we see this all the time when we talk to enterprises. And it's
Yeah.
weird and ironic because a bigger percentage of IT leaders than ever is telling us, oh, yes, training is a strategic imperative, extremely important. We're very into it. And we see growth in IT training to the tune of about a 5.5% CAGR, which is great. But when you compare it to IT spending, it's just a sliver. So training, software growth, and skilling in general isn't growing as fast as IT spending overall. And worse, it's not growing as fast as the resources needed to put it in action. I mean, it's not just companies needing to come out and say, yes, skilling is important. They need to provide the people and the money and the time to get people trained.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we see that ourselves that there's never enough money, and it's never spread broadly enough, particularly in the skills space. So, I think technology has to play a role in helping to scale that.
And that's
And so,
happening, Damien,
yeah,
right? I mean, thanks to the pandemic,
absolutely.
I mean, we've got
Yeah,
training going through really a bona fide renaissance. It's no longer super boring and
absolutely.
terrible anymore. There's labs and gamification and experiential learning, lots of stuff to make training better. And if you're
I think
clever,
so.
it's less expensive, especially with Gen AI. You know,
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
recently changed our forecast for what skilling is going to cost. We used to say $6.5 trillion in losses as a result of a lack of skills. We now say only 5.5.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think those, learning platforms increasingly becoming more relevant to the learner in their journey and their needs. So being a lot more adaptive around their requirements, the learner's requirements, and also making it fun and engaging, scalable, and
Personalized.
just in time where,
Yeah.
where they need the knowledge, to apply the knowledge where they need it. So absolutely. So Amy, can you put any of these changes and priorities into perspective for us in terms of your research? How does IDC see the relationship between skills and the employment market, jobs evolving? Perhaps you can just double click on that for us and dive into a little bit of a relationship between, the skills, jobs, and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and I think that's the $1 million question, not literally, but certainly figuratively. Well, we asked, just as an example, what was top of mind for C-level executives as they're juggling those priorities, and specifically, given all the competing economic pressures, skills requirements, there's climate change, there's all these different areas where they need to prioritize their investments, and so when we asked about where those investments were going to go, what's interesting is they are very consistently starting with automation, including Gen AI. Well, if you want to make that investment clearly for productivity reasons, clearly to drive operational efficiency and the like, you're going to have to make a companion investment in skills enhancements for the employees. So why? Because the nature of the jobs themselves are changing. 2 years ago, we didn't have a chief AI officer. We didn't have a prompt engineer. We didn't have people needing to do all of these new types of roles and the skills that go with those roles. So it's natural to see that there's going to be not only investment in the skills development to make that automation go more smoothly, but also the platforms to be able to drive collaboration between employees, also between employees and clients, to build that bridge between different people who need to work together, between different data sources. And that's how that magic is going to happen, and also how it's going to become secure in the transfer of knowledge, because you have to have control over those elements.